Is it? Yeah.
Alrighty, Jessica. So I almost said my name's Taylor. Okay, Jessica. So I'm recording our session today.
Okay.
I'm also going to be taking notes. If you want to look at either of those things or are comfortable with any of those things being on video or written down, just let me know.
Okay.
The notes are just so that I can give you better feedback and overall make it a more progressive situation for you.
Okay.
So just go ahead and sign that consent form. And then what did you want to talk about today?
Okay. So, I recently had a baby. He's 4 months old now.
Alright.
So I have kind of a lot of downtime, like especially when he's asleep, kind of just laying in bed. I usually go on Facebook, and then I got to researching things one day, and I know it's farther in the future for him, but I was just researching like stuff about schools and stuff for him, and I had actually come across an incident with a shooting in Sandy Hook, and it was actually at an elementary school,
Yes.
which was very shocking to me. Mostly when you hear about shootings, you think about like high schools usually, and that's where they usually put security, but it was in an elementary school, which kind of really scared me that these things still happen at schools that young.
So you're feeling some anxiety about your son going to school?
Definitely.
Okay. So in particular, you're feeling worrisome about his safety going to school?
Yeah, mostly because you don't see much security in elementary schools. Like, I know a lot of high schools, they have police officers and security guards. Even in middle schools, I think they have security guards. But in elementary schools, you don't see any of that. So if one of these situations were to occur, I just really worry, like, do they have the right protection to stop this from getting as far as it did prior to the Sandy Hook shooting?
Right. So, I think you may know or may not that usually they have higher security in high schools and middle schools because kids in high school and middle school usually get in more altercations and are more susceptible to having a certain type of mental breakdowns that can lead to those types of situations. I think in that particular situation with the Sandy Hook shooting, no one was expecting that because it was an adult who decided to take action on the kids. Sorry, I was thinking about that situation for a second. But anyway, in your particular area, like where you live, do you feel like in general, what am I trying to say?
It could happen.
Yeah, but do you feel like in general where you live, mental health is an issue at all?
Yes, I definitely do.
You do?
Just because even growing up, I mean, I kind of had some stages of depression and anxiety, but I will say for myself, it wasn't as bad as a lot of my friends. Like, I grew up with one friend in particular. Her name was Ashley, and she was in a very bad state, and I just know as her best friend, it was just really hard on me to watch her go through that.
Right.
And I've seen it make her angry, make her just not know what to do at all. And I just know that if just that and like she was even getting care. I just know like even with this boy who shot up the school, he had OCD, depression, anxiety. He was on the verge of having autism, and he wasn't properly treated. He didn't get any treatment at all. His parents kind of just brushed off everything that the doctors had told them to do.
Right.
That I know many people here, they feel depressed and stuff, and they don't get help because they honestly feel embarrassed or might be shamed to admit to this stuff. I feel like the same thing could happen here.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we had an incident with another high school, Great Mills.
Yeah.
And I believe that it was a relationship type shooting. But, I mean, it ended up hurting another person. I mean, things happen. And what if something like that happens, or even a teacher, her husband or his wife gets mad and decides to go shoot her at the school.
Yeah.
And ends up hurting another little kid.
Yeah.
Like, things happen.
You're right. I think in a perfect world, it would be nice to not have to worry about terrible things happening like that. But we can't. So those things are out of our control. However, dealing with this anxiety that you're feeling towards the safety of your children and, you know, your community in general. I'm sure it's just a horrible thing to happen. There are ways that we can shed light on better coping skills for people in general, if we feel like they're not getting the type of coping skills that they need from their parents per se, or wherever they may be in, whatever situation they may be in. So maybe a goal for you could be to learn how to detect certain individuals that you feel, or a few other people or a community may feel is at risk or is suspicious in how they're dealing with their mental issues. And we may not know what they are, but there are some telltale signs of struggle. So I think for you in specific, to something that will help you a lot in relieving your anxiety is reaching out that helping hand and being able to say, you know, I understand what you're going through. I understand that frustration. And there are ways that you can alleviate those that will help everyone in the situation. I think for you, that would be a really good way to just slow down anxiety in general, because then it's in your community where you're letting people know that you care for them and you care that their mental hygiene is at its best, and therefore, in a domino effect, hopefully, they'll be able to spread that message to other people, and other people will
start doing the same thing.
Right.
I think that would be really helpful. The only thing that concerns me sometimes is some people, they don't like to share, and they don't like to get the care that they need. They think they can deal with it on their own. But in my personal belief, I believe there's always somebody who can break that person, and I believe that nobody should be given up on.
Yeah.
And that's honestly what I feel that was done with this guy. I feel like he was given up on, that maybe he was a handful to his mom and his dad, which I don't think his dad was part of his life as much as his mom, just because simply you don't really hear much about his dad. Although I did see that his dad had killed himself after the shooting, and after his son had killed himself after he shot all those people.
That's
so
horrible.
I just wonder, like, was that from embarrassment, or was he ashamed, or what, did he feel like a failure as a parent?
You know, I'm not really sure about that one. That it will be up to speculation. I'm sure it could be related to it in a large way. But gosh, where was I going with that? It was good too. Man. Oh, come on. Okay, here it is. So you were saying how his parents were a large part of not helping very much in him getting the help that he needed.
It's only because they ignored what they were told to do.
So if it were you, or if you were involved in that situation in any way, shape, or form, how would you have liked it to go? What do you think his parents could have done differently? Or
I think that no matter how hard it would have been, or how much of a struggle it was, or any of it, that's their kid. And I know personally as a mom, I would never give up. I mean, that's your obligation as a parent. That's your responsibility. And that should be your number one focus, is making sure your kid is okay, not just physically, but mentally as well. And I think that's a big issue, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of parents ignore, or they get frustrated with. And I think that if it's taken care of, a lot of not only shootings, but just like traumatic events, or like even just acts of criminalization, I think that those would end. Not totally, I mean, but I think a lot of them would.
Yeah.
I think crime rates would honestly go down. I think people act out because either they're not getting the attention they need from their parents, or they're not getting the help they need. And I just think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I do agree with that though. I feel like, but then again, this is speaking very
broadly.
Yeah, and very I don't know the word for it, but hopefully, but kind of almost in dramatically, hopefully that in a perfect world, if everybody could be raised in a healthy family, the world would be well off.
I think that if you're neglecting your child's mental health, it should be treated as you're neglecting your child's
Right.
health.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I know in many situations, they'll take your child away from you if you're not giving them the proper physical help. I think it should be the same way. This guy was diagnosed by a doctor with mental health problems, and he wasn't getting the care. I think that should have been a red flag right away. Somebody should have noticed, a doctor, somebody.
Yeah.
And either he should have gotten the help he needed, or they should have found him a better care system. I know he was, I'm pretty sure he was over 18 at the time this incident happened, but I believe that, this wasn't just a thing that happened when he was 19 years old.
Right.
This was built up over time.
A long time coming.
Yeah.
So, do you think there was some intervention, or there is, or could have been, some intervention processes that could have been taken
to prevent this?
To prevent it, yeah, like throughout his lifetime. Maybe, I know there's only so much that, schools can do. But
I know he was socially awkward, which makes me wonder, was he bullied at school too? And not only having no care at home, but he was also kind of miserable at school too. I know I've read that people used to refer to him as weird, and people are mean. People in high schools are very mean.
Yeah.
Which, one person can only take so much. And I don't think what he did was right at all, but I also just don't think he was in a right state of mind either.
Right.
And I think that he should have had the help, and I think that his mom is partially part of the blame.
His mom was part of the blame?
Mm-hmm. Just because she simply ignored his mental health. And it's not like he asked to have these mental health problems. Mm-hmm. He didn't want them.
Right.
And he was just given them. And anybody who just unfortunate to have them should be fortunate to have the care to help them.
Right. So, in specifics, what kind of care do you think he could have had offered to him, or what do you think could be different about the systems and the way they are now? The mental health systems in private practice or private care and primary care doctors and in school even, and in the home. What do you think?
I know he was talking to a school psychologist, but they're only so experienced. I think he should have had a very experienced doctor who knew what they were dealing with and who knew how to deal with something like that. He had OCD. That in itself is just, I just couldn't even imagine the frustration and just how he felt with that. And he was socially awkward, just having, and I don't know if he was autistic or if he had a lot of signs of it. Mm-hmm. But that in itself, he just didn't understand or how to act socially with the outside world. He probably just had so much going on in his head he really didn't know.
Yeah, so I know that he did have Asperger's, and I have somebody in my family that has Asperger's, and it's very, I'm not very, very experienced on it, but it's very, it's almost as if the normal social cues that me and you, mm-hmm. or any other individual in society, they don't quite understand them. So if me and you were talking right now, and we were in a grocery line, and you tried to start a conversation with me, and I kind of just gave you a side eye, mm-hmm. What are you doing? You would get the gist that she doesn't want to talk. Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily what someone who's Asperger's, who's autistic, would mean.
Would what?
If they side-eyed someone, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't want to talk, they just don't want to.
Yeah, but they wouldn't understand that means that they don't want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand those body language cues, and like sometimes they take jokes seriously because they don't understand that it's sarcasm. You know, those twists and morphs in reality that people sometimes make to make light out of things. They don't understand the basis of that. So
definitely. I mean, I have a first cousin. She lives in Baltimore. She's about 7 years old now. She's autistic, and I don't see her much, but I mean, like holidays I do. And I just know, like my uncle, he had gotten married. She doesn't really throw like tantrums, but she like just does like we were at the wedding and like she pulled her pants down and she didn't see a problem with it and she just didn't know better. Or like I think people were like saying like stuff to the people who got married and then she was just like, do you want lettuce? Like she didn't know like that was like not the correct thing to do at that time.
yeah.
And it's just they don't know, and that's just as a kid. I mean, growing up with that and doing things that you just don't know, like you're not supposed to do, and people eventually just being rude to you about it once you get to a certain age.
Right.
That just takes a toll on a person, I believe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, I forgot what I was gonna say, which is like me. But anyway, so in general now, do you feel any better about the situation or working through the situation the way we are right now? Do you feel like you maybe have some better insight on the situation? Do you feel more at peace with it?
I do. I feel like, I mean, I'm never going to stop worrying just as a mother.
Right.
But I feel a little bit less anxious about sending him to school because things happen. But I think I'm going to raise my son to be aware of the signs, like you had said. And hopefully he'll trust me enough to tell me, and I'll be able to either bring it to someone else's attention or take matters into my own hands if that's what has to be done, and hopefully be able to prevent things.
Right, and you can even still I think being a part of the community is the most important thing that anybody can do, because if you know people and we'll just go with that. If you know people, then you have the ability to have more support. So you could start a committee in like the school later on in life, like all involved around mental health and sharing with just your small community, you know, the signs of it and how to deal with
small
it.
Things make a big difference.
Right.
So that would be really great. I think that would really ease my peace of mind.
Yes, because then you are very actively in the community, and then you never know. Other schools can hear about that, and then they start actively doing that, because it's such a lot of times it's people get overwhelmed because it's like this is such a large population to control. We have no control over the crazy people.
Yeah.
You know, we have no control over the monsters and so forth. But I think we do. If you break it down very small, which is easy enough to do. There's more than enough people in the world to appoint people to be in charge of people's mental health when they're not taking care of it, or the people who are supposed to be taking care of it aren't. And I think that could be another thing that you could look into is, and it doesn't have to be, gung-ho, like take up all of your life type of commitment.
Just a small, like once a week afternoon. I feel like that would really make a difference. It would make me feel better knowing that I'm doing something for it. And something that I would feel, it's not going to prevent things from happening, but it's a small step towards it.
And it can prevent things from happening. That very, very truly. Just simple interventions in everyday life. Like I've heard of some high schools have mandatory like meditations, like during lunchtime or something like that, and it's just it's insane the type of statistics that they get back on how much less stress is experienced by everybody on a day-to-day basis, and it's just such little things that if people are introduced to it every day, it starts to become normal to them, and then it starts to become something that they feel like they can talk about, and then it just becomes easy.
Yeah.
It just becomes part of life. Like just like you get sick, sometimes your mind gets sick. So I think that's a really good idea. I'm kind of happy I thought about that. When my kids go to school, I might do that. But anyway,
Yeah, that helped a lot. Thank you.
no problem. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No.
Do you feel like that's a good idea and you're feeling
I feel
good
really
for the future?
good about it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
20 minutes is perfect.
Perfect.
It's okay. That's fine.